Ladies and gentlemen, today the world stands at a historic turning point. Globe showing Europe, Africa, the unexpected Pakistan-Saudi Arabia strategic move has sent shockwaves across the globe. The United States, India, and Israel nations, accustomed to shaping the global narrative, are suddenly on the back foot. This bold step isn't just about defense or diplomacy. It's about redefining power in the 21st century. For decades, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia have walked parallel paths, brothers, in faith, culture, and cooperation. But now they have chosen to stand shoulder to shoulder in a way that changes the balance of power forever. Why is the world shocked? Because this alliance creates a new axis of influence. Pakistan, with its nuclear capabilities, strategic geography, and resilient population, is now more empowered when backed by Saudi Arabia's immense economic strength, energy reserves, and religious leadership. Together, they form a force of stability and resistance against foreign dominance. For the United States, this move threatens decades of careful control over the Middle East. For India, it complicates their regional ambitions and puts pressure on their fragile alliances. And for Israel, this union raises new questions about security, recognition, and long-term influence. But make no mistake, this is not just about geopolitics. This is about the awakening of nations who refuse to be dictated to. Pakistan and Saudi Arabia are sending a message loud and clear. We decide our future. We build our alliances. We stand strong together. The world is witnessing a moment that will be remembered as a historic turning point in modern geopolitics. For decades, global power has been concentrated in the hands of a few nations that shaped policies, dictated alliances, and decided the fates of weaker countries. Yet now, with one bold move, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia have disrupted this long-standing pattern and created a ripple effect that has shocked the United States, India, and Israel. This moment is not just another diplomatic handshake or ceremonial agreement. It represents a seismic shift in the architecture of global power, and the world is still trying to come to terms with its consequences. The reason this move is so powerful is because it challenges expectation. For years, the global narrative suggested that Pakistan was isolated, struggling under economic pressures and political instability, while Saudi Arabia was portrayed as a nation overly dependent on Western security guarantees. Few believed these two states could forge a partnership strong enough to alter international dynamics. But history has shown that alliances born out of necessity and mutual respect often carry the greatest strength. Pakistan, with its strategic location bridging South Asia, Central Asia, and the Middle East, brings military capability, nuclear deterrence, and a young, resilient population. Saudi Arabia, with its unmatched oil reserves, vast economic clout, and status as the custodian of Islam's holiest sites, brings wealth, influence, and leadership in the Muslim world. When these two strengths align, they form a partnership that cannot be ignored, even by the most powerful nations. For the United States, this development is alarming because it directly undermines Washington's traditional influence in the Middle East. America has long relied on Saudi Arabia as a cornerstone of its regional strategy, from ensuring energy stability to countering rivals. But if Riyadh begins to deepen its cooperation with Islamabad in ways that sidestep Washington, it signals that the old rules of dependency are breaking down. This is why policymakers in the U.S. view the Pakistan-Saudi alignment as more than symbolic. It threatens the very foundation of America's carefully designed balance of power in the region. India, too, finds itself unsettled by this bold move. New Delhi has been working tirelessly to strengthen ties with both Washington and Riyadh in order to isolate Pakistan diplomatically. The hope was that Saudi Arabia, with its financial and political influence, would distance itself from Pakistan and lean closer to India. Instead, the opposite has occurred. A closer Pakistan-Saudi alliance means India faces the uncomfortable reality that its strategy to sideline Pakistan is failing. Moreover, India's regional ambitions, whether in South Asia or in the Gulf, will now encounter more resistance because Pakistan's position has been reinforced by Saudi Arabia's backing. For Israel, the shock is of a different kind. Israel has been gradually normalizing ties with some Arab states under U.S. sponsorship, building a framework that ensured its security and expanded its diplomatic recognition. However, a strong Saudi-Pakistani partnership complicates this trajectory. Pakistan has never recognized Israel, and Riyadh's move towards Islamabad suggests that the kingdom is not yet ready to fully abandon the Palestinian cause in favor of normalization with Tel Aviv. For Israeli strategists, this creates uncertainty as they now face the possibility of a reinvigorated Muslim bloc led by two countries with both legitimacy and strength. In short, what makes this moment a historic turning point is not just the alliance itself, but the reaction it has triggered among global powers. The shockwaves felt in Washington, New Delhi, and Tel Aviv are proof that Pakistan and Saudi Arabia have altered the game. They are no longer seen as passive players, but as active shapers of the international order. This partnership represents the rise of a new axis of influence, one that demands recognition, commands respect, and signals that the era of unquestioned dominance by a handful of nations is beginning to fade. When we talk about redefining power in the 21st century, it is not merely about armies, weapons, or the size of a nation's economy. True power today is about influence, independence, and the ability to rewrite the rules of engagement in a world long dominated by a few major players. The bold partnership between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia represents exactly that, a redefinition of power that transcends traditional defense agreements and reshapes the very dynamics of how influence works on the global stage. For decades, both countries have been operating within systems largely created and controlled by others. Pakistan, situated in a region constantly pulled by great power competition, has often found itself restricted by economic dependency, political pressure, and military challenges. Saudi Arabia, while wealthy and influential due to its oil reserves, has remained tied to Western defense umbrellas and aligned policies. But their decision to forge a stronger alliance marks a shift away from dependency and into a model of self-determined strength. This is what shakes the world, the understanding that two nations previously considered as secondary players are now willing to act as architects of their own destiny. In the past, power was largely measured in the ability of a single country to dominate militarily or economically. But in the interconnected 21st century, alliances and partnerships that combine complementary strengths are what truly set new benchmarks for influence. Pakistan brings to the table one of the most powerful militaries in the Muslim world, nuclear capability that deters aggression, and a geostrategic position that controls access to vital trade routes connecting Asia, the Middle East, and beyond. Saudi Arabia brings unmatched economic weight, control over energy supplies that fuel the global economy, and a position of spiritual authority that resonates with nearly 2 billion Muslims. Worldwide, separately, both countries are strong, but together, they transcend their individual limits and create an entirely new center of gravity in world politics. This is no longer just about protection or defense. It is about creating a pole of influence that others must now take into account when making decisions that affect the future. The very essence of power is also psychological. For years, countries like the United States, India, and Israel assumed that Pakistan and Saudi Arabia would remain dependent, predictable, and firmly within the influence of stronger powers. But the redefinition taking place here is rooted in the fact that both Islamabad and Riyadh are choosing to break from that narrative. They are no longer satisfied being instruments in someone else's grand strategy. Instead, they are positioning themselves as independent actors capable of shaping the direction of entire regions. This is why their move appears so bold, even shocking, to the rest of the world, because it disrupts the comfortable assumptions upon which existing global strategies were built. It is important to realize that in the 21st century, power is not confined to borders. It extends into media, diplomacy, technology, and economic leverage. By strengthening ties, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia are signaling to allies and adversaries alike that they intend to use every domain of influence available to them. The partnership can evolve into defense cooperation, joint economic projects, energy security agreements, and diplomatic coordination in international institutions. Each of these layers adds new dimensions to their influence, which is far more significant than a single military pact or trade deal. It redefines power by showing that influence can be achieved not by following the established order, but by creating one's own path. For the global community, this redefinition of power carries serious implications. It means that established superpowers can no longer take their dominance for granted. It means that regional strategies that ignored Pakistan or attempted to isolate it will now have to be recalibrated. It means that Saudi Arabia, long viewed as bound to Western security frameworks, is now capable of independent strategic choices that carry weight far beyond its borders. In short, the move by Pakistan and Saudi Arabia does not simply shift the pieces on the chessboard. It challenges the rules of the game itself, proving that the 21st century will not belong to those who cling to old hierarchies, but to those who have the courage to redefine them. The relationship between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia has always been rooted in something deeper than politics or economics. It is a bond nurtured by shared faith, a sense of cultural kinship, and a long history of cooperation. For decades, both nations have described themselves as brothers in the Muslim world, bound by religion and mutual respect. Yet what is unfolding now goes beyond brotherhood. The connection, once symbolic, has transformed into a strategic alliance that carries immense weight on the global stage. This transformation is critical because in the modern world, relationships between states cannot survive on sentiment alone. They must be supported by concrete actions, mutual interests, and shared goals. That is exactly what Pakistan and Saudi Arabia are now demonstrating to the world. Historically, Saudi Arabia has extended significant support to Pakistan in times of crisis, from economic assistance to political backing in international forums. Likewise, Pakistan has always stood by Saudi Arabia, offering military training, manpower, and unwavering loyalty to the kingdom's security. This cycle of cooperation was long seen as the natural duty of two Muslim countries sharing a brotherly bond. But with their recent bold moves, the partnership has evolved into something more deliberate and calculated, a recognition that together they are stronger, more resilient, and capable of influencing not just the Muslim world, but global affairs at large. The Brotherhood has matured into a partnership designed not just to preserve ties of faith and culture, but to secure tangible benefits for both nations in terms of defense, economics, and diplomacy. At its core, this shift reflects the evolution of global politics. Symbolic brotherhood may inspire unity, but it does not change the balance of power. What Pakistan and Saudi Arabia have realized is that the time has come to use their natural closeness as the foundation of a formal strategic alignment. Pakistan brings military credibility, a young and ambitious population, and the ability to deter threats through its nuclear capabilities. Saudi Arabia brings unmatched financial resources, energy power, and religious legitimacy as the custodian of Islam's holiest sites. When these elements combine under the framework of strategy rather than just sentiment, the result is a partnership that commands respect and forces global powers to pay attention. This transition is particularly significant because it reflects a conscious choice to elevate ties into a model of cooperation that extends beyond immediate needs. In the past, Saudi Arabia might have provided Pakistan with financial relief during economic challenges, or Pakistan might have stationed troops to support Saudi defense needs. These were reactive gestures of brotherhood. Now, however, the two nations are beginning to plan proactively, envisioning projects, agreements, and collaborations that will endure regardless of external pressures. It is no longer just about helping each other in moments of crisis, but about building a joint future that strengthens their positions against any adversary. The move from symbolic to strategic has also sent a strong message to the rest of the world. To allies, it signals reliability that Pakistan and Saudi Arabia are not fair, whether friends but committed partners who can be trusted to stand firm in both prosperity and hardship. To rivals, it sends a warning that isolating one is no longer possible without confronting the strength of the other. This is a powerful transformation because unity rooted in brotherhood is difficult to challenge, but unity solidified by strategy becomes nearly unbreakable. The global community is beginning to understand that this alliance is not temporary or fragile, but designed to endure the tests of time. The evolution of Pakistan-Saudi ties into a strategic partnership also strengthens their role in the wider Muslim world. Many nations look to Saudi Arabia for spiritual leadership and to Pakistan for military credibility. Together, they form a center of gravity that can inspire confidence, solidarity, and resistance against external domination. This alliance becomes more than the sum of its parts. It becomes a symbol of what unity can achieve when it grows from shared history into shared vision. And in that transformation lies the reason why this partnership is being recognized not just as brotherhood, but as one of the most consequential alliances of our time. When the strengths of two nations complement each other so perfectly, the world has no choice but to pay attention. Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, while unique in their individual capabilities, have found in each other the exact qualities that turn potential into undeniable power. Pakistan's status as the only Muslim majority country with nuclear capability places it in a position of unmatched military credibility in the Islamic world. Its armed forces are battle-tested, disciplined, and respected across continents, not only for their size, but also for their professionalism and resilience in times of conflict. Beyond its military, Pakistan possesses a geostrategic location that links South Asia, the Middle East, and Central Asia, giving it natural leverage over trade routes, energy corridors, and geopolitical choke points. On the other side stands Saudi Arabia, a nation that has long been recognized as the financial heartbeat of the Muslim world. With its immense oil and gas reserves, it holds sway over global energy markets, influencing economies far beyond its borders. Its financial wealth allows it to invest in infrastructure, defense, and international projects that shape the future not just of the region, but of the entire world. Together, these two strengths, military deterrence and economic dominance, form a new axis that challenges the existing order and signals the arrival of a force too large to be ignored. This combination is powerful because it bridges two critical dimensions of influence: hard power and soft power. Pakistan, through its military and nuclear capabilities, ensures that this alliance cannot be taken lightly. Any aggression toward either nation is now subject to the awareness that a credible deterrent exists within their partnership. At the same time, Saudi Arabia provides the economic stability and resources necessary to sustain long-term ambitions. The kingdom's vast wealth can support Pakistan in overcoming its economic vulnerabilities, while Pakistan's military strength offers yet a shield of protection that goes beyond the traditional reliance on Western forces. It is a synergy in which each nation provides what the other lacks, creating balance and resilience that few alliances in the world can boast. For decades, global powers have relied on the fragmentation of strengths within the Muslim world to maintain control. Wealth existed in some states, military capability in others, but rarely did these assets align in a single partnership. What Pakistan and Saudi Arabia have done is break that cycle by uniting their complementary strengths under one vision. This sends a message not only to their adversaries but also to their allies. The Muslim world is no longer dependent on outside powers to defend its interests or secure its future. By pooling their resources, they have created a self-sufficient model of power that is capable of projecting influence on a global scale. The implications are profound. Energy has always been the lifeblood of the modern economy, and Saudi Arabia continues to hold the keys to that lifeblood. By coupling its energy dominance with Pakistan's nuclear capability, the alliance positions itself as both the guardian of resources and the protector of sovereignty. This dual advantage means that global powers must now engage with them on equal footing, acknowledging their ability not just to contribute but to shape outcomes. For the United States, India, and Israel, this is unsettling because it erodes their ability to dictate terms without considering the combined response of two nations whose partnership amplifies their influence exponentially. Equally significant is the psychological impact of this union. Nations that once saw Pakistan as struggling economically or Saudi Arabia as dependent militarily now face a reality where their perceived weaknesses are neutralized by each other's strength. Pakistan gains economic backing that bolsters its global position, while Saudi Arabia gains military assurance that allows it to act more independently on the world stage. This creates a cycle of confidence and empowerment that makes their alliance more than just a defensive measure. It becomes a proactive force shaping the narrative of global politics. The merging of Pakistan's military power and Saudi Arabia's economic dominance is, in essence, the creation of a new axis of influence. It is not bound by Western frameworks, nor is it limited by historical dependencies. Instead, it is born from a recognition of complementary strengths and shared ambitions. Together, they have positioned themselves as architects of their own destiny, capable of standing tall in a world that is slowly adjusting to the rise of new centers of power. And in that unity lies the true force of their combined strength, one that has the potential to redraw the map of global influence in the years to come. The ripple effects of the Pakistan-Saudi Arabia partnership are not confined to the two nations involved. They are reverberating across continents, unsettling established strategies and forcing powerful nations to reconsider their positions. For the United States, this development represents a gradual erosion of influence in a region it has long considered vital to its global dominance. Washington has relied on Saudi Arabia not just as an energy partner, but also as a cornerstone of its Middle Eastern strategy, a dependable ally that aligned with American policies and served as a counterbalance to rivals, with Riyadh moving closer to Islamabad in ways that are independent of American oversight. That foundation weakens. It signals a shift away from unquestioned dependence on the West and toward a model of self-reliance supported by partnerships rooted in regional solidarity rather than foreign dictate. This is unsettling for the U.S. because it undermines decades of carefully crafted influence built through military cooperation, economic investments, and political pressure. A Saudi Arabia that pursues its own interests alongside Pakistan, rather than strictly aligning with Washington, reduces America's ability to dictate the pace and direction of Middle Eastern affairs. For India, the repercussions are even more direct. For years, New Delhi has worked tirelessly to expand its global presence, strengthen economic and defense ties with Washington, and even cultivate warmer relations with Riyadh in an effort to weaken Pakistan's standing. India's ambitions for regional dominance have relied heavily on the assumption that Pakistan would remain diplomatically isolated and economically constrained, unable to compete with India's growing influence. Yet the Pakistan-Saudi Arabia alignment turns that assumption upside down. With Saudi Arabia standing firmly behind Islamabad, India faces the uncomfortable reality that its strategy to corner Pakistan is faltering. Not only does this partnership give Pakistan economic relief and political support, but it also emboldens Islamabad to counter New Delhi's narrative on issues like Kashmir. India's plans to establish itself as the uncontested regional leader now face new obstacles, as Pakistan's voice becomes louder and stronger when amplified by Saudi Arabia's weight. This challenges India's long-term goals, creating a regional balance that is less tilted in its favor. Israel, too, finds itself confronted with new uncertainties. In recent years, Tel Aviv has sought to normalize relations with Arab states through U.S. brokered agreements, aiming to expand diplomatic recognition and secure its position in the region. While some Gulf nations have embraced this path, Saudi Arabia's closer embrace of Pakistan complicates Israel's calculus. Pakistan has consistently refused to recognize Israel, standing firm on its commitment to the Palestinian cause. Riyadh's alignment with Islamabad suggests that the kingdom is not ready to fully commit to normalization at the expense of its broader role in the Muslim world. This creates a layer of unpredictability for Israel, which has been counting on Saudi Arabia as a potential partner in solidifying its regional acceptance. Instead, Israel now faces the possibility of a strengthened Muslim bloc where Pakistan's military credibility and Saudi Arabia's spiritual leadership reinforce the Palestinian question and resist the normalization process. The broader repercussions go beyond these three nations. By disrupting the expected balance of alliances, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia are demonstrating that global politics is no longer static. The United States is losing its ability to operate as the unquestioned power broker in the Middle East. India's regional ambitions are colliding with new realities, and Israel's security assumptions are being tested in ways that complicate its long-term strategies. These disruptions are not temporary tremors. They are signs of a deeper shift toward a multipolar world where influence is more evenly distributed and where alliances outside of Western frameworks carry real weight. The Pakistan-Saudi partnership is at the center of this shift, not only changing the balance of power, but also forcing the most powerful nations to rethink how they engage with the region. In doing so, it underscores the fact that global repercussions are inevitable when two nations with complementary strengths decide to act together, independently, and with a vision of reshaping their future on their own terms. Every great alliance carries within it not only strategic goals, but also a symbolic message. And the message sent by Pakistan and Saudi Arabia through their bold alignment is as loud as it is clear. They will no longer allow their futures to be written by others. For too long, both nations have operated under the shadow of external influence, pressured to align with policies that often served foreign interests more than their own. Washington dictated the pace of Saudi oil strategies, while New Delhi and its allies tried to isolate Pakistan on the global stage. Both countries felt the weight of expectations placed on them by stronger powers, often at the expense of their sovereignty. Now, with this partnership, they are declaring that era over. The statement they make is not hidden in diplomatic language, but reflected in their actions. An unambiguous refusal to remain passive participants in a system built to keep them dependent. Instead, they are shaping a new order where their choices, their values, and their visions take precedence over external agendas. This declaration of independence is revolutionary because it demonstrates courage in the face of immense pressure. Saudi Arabia, for decades, has been seen as a close ally of the United States, often tailoring its policies to align with Western expectations. Pakistan, too, has been trapped in cycles of economic dependency, frequently turning to global institutions controlled by the very powers that sought to restrict its influence. Both nations could have continued along these familiar paths, quietly playing their roles within the framework others design. Yet, by choosing to embrace each other and strengthen their bond, they have taken a decisive step toward rewriting the rules. This is not merely about resisting pressure. It is about taking ownership of destiny and proving that independence is not granted, it is seized. The message resonates beyond borders. It tells smaller nations in Asia, Africa, and the Muslim world that dependency is not permanent, that alliances built on shared values can liberate countries from the grip of stronger powers. It tells the world that sovereignty is not just a word in political speeches, but a principle that can be defended when nations are willing to support each other rather than submit to outsiders. And most importantly, it tells adversaries that Pakistan and Saudi Arabia are not pawns to be moved on someone else's chessboard. They are players in their own right, prepared to chart their course. With determination, what makes this message powerful is that it is backed by substance. Independence without strength is fragile, but independence fortified by nuclear deterrence, energy dominance, economic resources, and military credibility is a reality the world cannot dismiss. By aligning their complementary strengths, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia give weight to their declaration. They are not simply announcing independence in words, they are proving it through actions that carry real consequences. Their cooperation in defense, trade, diplomacy, and religious leadership ensures that the message cannot be ignored because it has tangible effects on global politics and regional balances. This defiance against foreign dictation also reshapes how allies and rivals perceive them. Allies are now forced to recognize Pakistan and Saudi Arabia as equals rather than subordinate. Rivals, meanwhile, must reconsider strategies that once relied on dividing or pressuring them individually. The combined message is that attempts to dominate or manipulate them will now meet resistance not from one, but from two nations standing shoulder to shoulder. This is why the global shock is so profound. It is not only the birth of an alliance, but also the rise of a new voice in international affairs, one that refuses to be silenced or sidelined. In the end, the bold move by Pakistan and Saudi Arabia serves as a declaration to the entire world. They will define their identities, chart their own paths, and build their futures on their own terms. No longer will they allow policies to be dictated by Washington, ambitions to be suppressed by New Delhi, or agendas to be reshaped by Tel Aviv. Their independence is their message, and their message is a promise that the era of submission is over and a new chapter of self-determination has begun.